Hi, I'm Amanda Skelton, an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Today I'd like to show you how to make this cute card. It's a fairly simple and easy card to make, but it can be quite striking by the time you've added a really nice paper and some little sequins to add some detail. This card I've made, I've already made it with the what have I made? Best Dressed DSP and the Best Dressed or Dress to Impress stamp set and die cutting set that matches. And on this one I've also used an embossing folder, which is the stone embossing folder. I think this is going to be a really useful one because especially for mail cards, so it's just really nice to add a bit of detail as well onto your background. Don't have to, it could be plain. So this card I've used the Best Dressed suite, but the card I'm going to demonstrate to you today is going to be using the By the Dock bundle and the Come Sail Away DSP. So I'm going to do a mail version of this card just to show how you can switch it up really. Okay, so what do we need? So we need a piece of A5 white cardstock, so basically just cutting an A4 piece of card in two. So that roughly measures 8 1/4 inches by 5 3/4, maybe just over, but basically it's a half a piece of card. And then I've scored it halfway down in the middle. That's going to be your card base. And then we're going to have a piece of card. I don't know if I've done the right, which one I've done now. Let's just check. I've got two similar sizes. Yeah, so that one. Okay. So I'm using crumb cake cardstock here, which is a really nice neutral colour, especially for mail cards. And that wants to measure 3.5 inches by 4.5 inches. And then I've got some DSP, so I'm using the Come Sail Away DSP here. I said it's got two sides, but I thought I'd do something other than blue on this one, so I've gone for the green option on this one. And that needs to measure 1 5/8 by 5.5 inches. Don't need to be too overly careful on the measurements because that's going to become your little flag section. But it looks quite nice if you just have it overlapping the bottom here. And then you'll want either some white cardstock or some more crumb cake cardstock, and we're going to use that to stamp on our embellishments. So I'm using the By the Dock set for this, so I'm going to put the stamp the boat onto the crumb cake. You put it onto white as well if you want to. And I'm going to stamp the little frog. I'm going to die cut both of those. I'm going to put some seagulls on, and then I'm going to use the sentiment as well. Okay, so then you might also want some white cardstock or coloured cardstock, whichever you want to use, to add your detail on. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to use a different embossing folder to the one that I used on the female card. So I'm going to use this, I've put it in the wrong way, haven't I? What's it called? So I got to put the envelope. So High Seas, it's the High Seas 3D embossing folder. So I don't know if you can see that, but it gives a really nice wave effect. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'll get our die cutting machine. So we want to, it's quite a chunky folder, so I'm going to take off one of the thin die adapter and one of the clear ones. And I'm going to put that in the machine, and you always want to make sure that it goes in hinge side first. It'll just protect your embossing folder. Then I'm going to put the clear one on top, and then I'm just going to use, you can buy the shim, but this is the same shim that you would use for the really thick 3D embossing folders, so it just adds a bit more thickness to it. Put that one through. And then you've got your detail on your card. It also looks quite nice as clouds actually, depending on which way you have it up really. It also looks like clouds, which would be quite nice on white card. Okay, so I'm going to fold our card blank. I'm going to put that one on there. And then for your strip of card, you literally just want to cut up a V to make a flag tail. If you want to be exact about it, you can do all the measurements and make sure it's halfway and things. I just do it roughly by sight. So I quite like it where it goes over the background as well. Okay, so and then the other thing that you'll need is a rectangle for the sentiment. So I'm using the rectangle stitch framelit dies, and the size that I'm going to use is going to be the second from smallest on the big set of rectangles, and that will be just big enough for this. I'll always look up to you no matter how much I've grown. That should just about be big enough for that phrase. So we'll need that one in a minute. So let's do some stamping. So I'm going to stamp the boat in crumb cake, and because it's on crumb cake paper, even though you're doing it in the same colour ink, it will go darker because it'll absorb into the card. So this is quite a good way of not having to colour in your boat. So we'll die cut that, and then you've already got your boat sorted. Okay, the other thing we're going to do is I'm going to do this on white for the sentiment. So I'm going to use the crumb cake again, and I'm going to do this onto a rectangle, so it's roughly going to fit there. So just give yourself a bit of space to be able to die cut this. Okay, so we'll die cut that in a minute. And the other thing we want to stamp is the little frog. I thought the frog was tiny, so we're going to stamp the frog. I'm going to stamp that in black, and then I'm going to colour that in green. So let's have a little froggy there. And then a tiny little die to cut that one out in a minute. And then I'm going to colour in the frog. So I'm using dark old olive, which is quite a froggy green colour. Not too much colouring in on this one at least. There you go. And in a minute I'm going to as well use the bird as well, but I'll do that on the base. So let's die cut those items out. Oh, just lost my handle. It's not good, is it? Right, and we'll need all of our layers back again now because we're die cutting. So let's cut out our boat first. So these are all the dies that come with the matching by the dock bundle. So this is the boat. So when you stamp the boat, it has this water marks, water ripples as well. But when you die cut it, it doesn't do that. There's no reason why you couldn't stamp underneath it if you wanted to, or partially you could mask, and then it will, you could have the ripples underneath it as well. But on the stamp set, you've also got this water ripple as well, so you could stamp that if you wanted to. there's our boat. Oh gosh, I'm dropping everything today. Right, that will literally just fit in there. Literally just fits in, which is quite nice. And now we'll do the tiny frog. Look at this tiny little frog piece here, which is dinky. If you want to use washi tape, you can do. That helps to keep it in place. Or if not, you just need to make sure that you place your layers straight on top. There you go. Keep hold of my little die, otherwise I'll lose it because it's such a tiny one. And then you've got your tiny little frog, which is dinky. Right, so I think we're done with that for now. So we have our base here and our elements. I think I'll have a little frog down there. See if he's looking up. So I think I might do that like that, but you can play around with how you want to assemble it, and of course you can use any of the elements from the stamp set. And then what I'm going to use the Peaceful Poppy sequins, and I've picked out the gold and the black ones, and I think we'll just add a few sequins on as well. So let's assemble it all. So start off with our embossed layer. Oh, we were going to, actually before that, I was going to do some seagulls on it, wasn't I? So let's have a look where the seagulls might go. Now ideally, as I would always say, is do your, if you're going to stamp on a piece that will also be embossed, always do the stamping first. I even put him there. So I was probably thinking I would put them on here, but I think maybe I'll put it on here actually. So I'm going to use Smoky Slate, or if you want to, you can use the black. Actually, let me do that and I can demonstrate it. You can always use the same colour ink but stamp it off. So if you stamp it first, it's a darker colour. Each time you stamp it, it will be a lighter colour. So actually, by the time you get the third one, it actually looks like a grey, so you don't have to necessarily buy a grey. So I'm going to stamp it once, twice, and then I'm going to... So there you go. So there you can see that it's grey as opposed to the black. So that could be my frog looking up to the seagull. Or you can use a grey if you want to. That's entirely up to you. Right, so now we can add it all. And it's not too deep an embossing folder, this, so you should be able to use just a glue tape. But you can of course use wet glue as well. Sorry, I did that off of you. So tape all your edges. Again, I just do this by visual rather than measuring it, but if you want to measure it, you're very welcome to. just looks quite nice, butted up to the left edge there. I'm just going to move it up a little bit actually, just to balance it out, because we've got to get the boat on as well. And then just add a bit more glue onto that. And then let's add some sequins. So I'm going to use my pick your tool and use the, and then I think we'll just add some, actually I think we'll just add some down here. Now from an artist's perspective, I think 3s are good numbers. I might even do that and put the black one in the middle. So I think I'll just do that just to add another colour. So you just want to get your liquid glue. Just pop a small dot. And another. Again, you can play around with whatever colour variants of sequins you want. And then third dot. And then while they're still wet, just massage them into line. So there you go. There is a masculine version. So that was the female version. You can see how detailed and how sort of busy that one is now, can't you? But there's quite a nice male version of it as well. Thank you for watching, hope you've enjoyed it. You can buy the products at my Stampin' Up website, which is www.amandascraftedcards.stampinup.net, and you can find all the products on there, or do leave a message if you want to get any more information. Thank you for watching, take care, bye.